when the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in, then I'll watch them roll away again. Yeah. Sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Just sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting
time. Maritime Matters is brought to you live by Bahamas Maritime Connection.
What is maritime?
Maritime, simply put, relates to navigation or commerce on the high seas.
Some say money makes the world go round. I say ships move the money that make the world move.
Who navigates those large international ships?
How often are international ships required to be surveyed and inspected?
Maritime also protects our seas and borders by way of our local Bahamas Defense
Force. It is very sad to say that out of 1,500 plus ships that are registered under the Bahamian flag, only a very small amount of Bahamians are employed.
Maritime Matters.
And a pleasant good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain, and this is Tuesday, the 18th of June, 2024. And if it's Tuesday, you got it. It's Maritime Matters. Our topics for tonight's shows are pretty steep. I don't know if we can get through all these people, but we got the RBDF, Royal Bahamas Defense Force, the mark of a retired soldier. And you will be surprised tonight to know who is that retired soldier that gave that mark. We're going to talk about the world's largest cruise ship, the Utopia of the seas, as it comes to delivery. And guess what? We're going to talk about the voyages the Utopia of the seas would be making. Would you believe that big, huge, almost 250,000 gross tons? I think it's like 248,000 plus gross tons. They tried to make 250 and they cut short just a bit. But boy, trust me, the next mega cruise ship of the Oasis class is going to be over 250,000, over 250,000 gross tons. These are massive monsters these days. Well, that largest one that has just been released will be doing 3-day voyages and 4-day voyages, or should I say 3 nights and 4 nights in the Bahamas only. Would you believe that? That ship will home port in Florida and come only to the Bahamas 2 times a week to Nassau Harbor. The largest ship in the world. Isn't that a blessing? We're going to talk about the Houthis attack. You know, we got the 3H. Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. And the Houthis are running rampant in the Red Sea and in the Gulf of Aden. And we're going to talk about some of the things that they're doing and some of the experience that some of these seafarers are having due to the attacks by the Houthis. Very unpleasant, people, very unpleasant. Brings back to mind the actual bombing and sinking of the HMBS Flamingo. It is that serious, and you will hear that tonight. We have Russian warships in our waters again. And I don't mean the Bahamian waters. I'm talking about the waters of this hemisphere. The waters of the east coast of the US. The waters of the Caribbean. Those Russian ships actually went into Havana Harbor in Cuba. And I'm talking about warships, people, that can carry nuclear weapons. I mean, whether they're not armed, not with any nuclear heads or warheads, but they're just showing what they're capable of doing, where they're capable of going, and all the rest of that. And we're going to talk about little details of that. And last but not least, we want to talk about the situation with the Panama Canal. What's happening with Panama Canal? We know that they had a lot of drought, a lot of vessels were slowed down because they couldn't get the water fast enough to keep the locks filled and all the rest of that. And now we're hearing that things are on the up and up again. They're now bringing in over 20 ships, I think, per month passing through those locks. And they want to go up to 36 again or 39 again so that they could be back on where they used to be back in the day. That's the Panama Canal. And of course, we know that the Houthis have a lock on the Suez Canal, eh? A big lock. We're going to talk about all that tonight as we move forward with Maritime Matters. So please, be sure to stay tuned as we delve into discussions on these maritime issues. Be warned, people, we are locked. We are loaded with information. So please, don't you dare touch that dial. Our sponsors for the night show, our one-on-one pharmacy, and also Island Care Pharmacy for all your medication needs. And I can tell you, boy, they fix you right up. One-on-one pharmacy. Check out my little cousin Shantia McBride and a lovely team. Hi, Joy. Joy is on that East Street route, and I can tell you, boy, Joy is a pharmacist who won't play around. Joy will fix you up. Let's go to one-on-one pharmacy in Nassau, Island Care Pharmacy in Freeport. Fill your prescription at the store or send your refills via the online site, oneononepharmacy.com. That's all one word, all lowercase, oneononepharmacy and them.com. The 3 locations, East Street South, Charles Sinus Highway, and of course, Explorers Way in downtown Freeport. We are secondly sponsored by Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited. That's us, BMC. We provide you with your full slate of ISPS services, and if we're not the best, we're among the best, not in the Bahamas, people, in the world, because BMC can get it done. Good night to my Annie Mae. Up there in Freeport, boy. Annie Mae is, let me tell you, Annie Mae was here for the weekend. And I don't know what Annie Mae was thinking, but I had to track her down. I said, Annie Mae, you think you can sneak in now? So, and like me and Annie Mae talk, I sit on that bed and we run on from old times to new times to Timbuktu days. I ain't anyone like Annie Mae, but I know a little something we could talk. So yeah, my good Annie Mae came to Nassau for one of her granddaughter them wedding. Man, I just sat on that bed and we talk old talk. As the song says, let's talk old talk. It was such a joy to be sitting and talking with Lorraine and Annie Mae for them 2 hours. So, to my Maritime Matters #1 fan, I say again, good evening, Annie Mae, up there in Freeport. You're 91 years and going strong, and I can tell you, you talk strong, you move strong. Boy, my Annie Mae, she said, knee giving her a little issues, but that's only a knee. When you're 91 and you ain't got no knee problems, boy, I don't know. So that's my Annie Mae. It is my esteemed pleasure, dear listeners, to introduce to you the man of the hour, the man behind the controls, my wonderful producer. He is insatiable. The man of the hour, the man with all the power. He's fully able, quite capable, the one and only Mr. Greg Gibson. Yes, and he gave off that salute, that maritime chap that he normally gives. And I can tell you, that boy, he had military training somehow or the next, because I can tell you, he could chop off a salute, eh? You are listening to Maritime Matters, and on this show, we talk maritime. Maritime Matters airs weekly at 17:05. That's 5:05 p.m. every Tuesday here on Love 97 FM. The purpose of our show is to highlight persons that made significant contributions to the maritime field in the Bahamas and to sensitize Bahamians of opportunities in the maritime sector. We also cover current maritime issues from the domestic and international maritime feeds from the international feed. And let me tell you something, we loaded with international feeds tonight. Halfway through the show, well, I mean, when you're ready, you could call, because you know how we roll. Check the lines, brother producer. You know how we, the number to call is 326-8255. That's 326-8255 if you want in on this discussion. We're talking maritime, people. You're listening to Maritime Matters. Now, usually at this point we move to our first break. But since we ain't been in it long enough, let's dive into what I call the first piece of a litany of international feats to follow. The RBDF, Mark of a Retired Soldier. And what do we mean by Mark of Retired Soldier? You know, this weekend as I was doing my exercise on Saturday morning, I was doing a brisk 5-mile walk. I ain't back in shape yet to run, right? But my belly is still there, and I'm trying to get that down so I can start running again. You know, as a marathon man, I run over 20 marathons in my times, and I'll get back there, but right now I ain't ready to do that. So I do my walk, my little 5-mile walk, my little 10-mile walk when I run hot. But I was doing a 5-mile, and when I was coming up Carmichael Road, I was abruptly stopped by a man. This man stood directly in my path. I shift over, he shift over. And when I was about to reach him, he came to a stiff attention and he chopped off one of the most beautiful naval salutes that I ever saw. Just bam and chop. Of course, I stopped in my tracks. I came to attention and I returned one of the sharpest chop offs that I can recall ever doing. I was so moved by how this man was carrying on. I was like, and my dad said, listen, let me just tell you this. That was a moment of awesomeness. And I imagine that anybody in the midst that bore witness to this deep-rooted exchange would have to have looked in awe and wonder. Why would such a fantastic display of mutual respect be exchanged out here on the streets? So let me tell you, I've been off the job now, and when I say off the job, I mean off the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. Usually when you retire or you resign or you get kicked out, whatever, we refer to that as I used to be on the job. So I've been off the job now for over 30 years. Yeah, I'm getting up there. The man that encroached me into that exchange he was on the job for a little less than that, eh? But he saw me and he decided to show marks of respect right there and then, because there was mutual respect from the time I served as his CO. What is CO in the Defense Force? The commanding officer. I used to be the captain on the vessel that he was the engineer on. And we maintain that respect forever. And I can tell you, I got lots of deep-rooted relationships in the Defense Force. That's the way the military works. See, back in the day, we had real camaraderie on that force, with real commitment to duty and real sense of being naval officers and Marines. And so, the name of that man I engaged was none other than Chief Petty Officer Colebrook, mechanic. We call him Steelhead back in the day. In an endearing way, of course. And from time to time, we would cross paths along Carmichael Road, because you know that's my route for running when I used to run marathon. I always used to see Steel, and we always hail, and he always showed me respect. I show him respect. But boy, I tell you, Saturday morning was like, we took it to the next level. But this time, it was just so different. And it reminds me so much of the way we were in the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. You know the song, The Way We Were. I'm the best singer, boy, but I like to sing, eh? I was a karaoke king. So the way we were in the Defense Force is what Steelhead had me feel on Saturday morning when he stood there. Make sure I don't pass him. Give me that big chop off, and I stood up to attention and returned that chop off, because we were men like that in those days. We were blessed. The Defense Force was so blessed with great officers and men. And we could start off with the squad from the Police Marine, the senior police officers that really steered and guided that Defense Force into being what it is today, eh? We had people like Bachelet LaFleur. And it isn't by chance I called Batch's name first, because Bachelet LaFleur was a navigator that knew the waters of the Bahamas in and out. And he was responsible for most of our senior DACMA trained officers learning how to take ships around this country. I don't care what nobody say. And then of course he was followed closely by Scotty Munro. Those who don't know, Scotty Munro was there from the days of the police marines as a navigator, a Long Island man. Knew every inch of the waters of the Bahamas. And the thing is, when I came back from Dartmouth as a train, you know, we did navigation, we did celestial navigation, we did all kind of navigation in Dartmouth. But when I got home, and I was taken out on my first patrol, of course, under the command of the great Jackson L. Ritchie, and the assistants, his deputy, who was really training me up, was Tellis Bethel at the time. And I would have to learn which way to leave Northwest Channel Light, which direction you go to get to Russell Beacon. When you get to Russell Beacon, you get to South Riding Rock. Then South Riding Rock, and then from there you either go to Orange Key, or you go straight toward Dog Rock if you're going to Keysal. And then of course if you're coming up the chain, the Bimini chain, then you swing around and you come for Ocean Key and South Bimini, Cat Key, South Bimini, North Rock, Great Isaacs. So you had to learn the waters of the Bahamas, no matter how good you can navigate, you know. If you don't have the local knowledge or somebody to show you the right path to get around these places, you are likely to be aground in no time. So we had the lead back then of the Amos Rolls, the Bachelet LaFleur's, and the Scotty Munros. More specifically Batch and Scotty, because they were the two that were navigators, and they took us under their wings. And when I say us, I had part of it, eh? Because Scotty, I went to see with Scotty a couple of times, and this man showed me, you know, by then I already knew the waters to a great extent, because I knew it by using radar and just getting around. Scotty showed me how to tell where I am without looking at the radar. Without looking at, he said, look at the water, young man. How deep you think this water is where we are now? And we was on the bikes. And I was like, I don't know, so about 25, 30 feet. He said, exactly. So now what does that tell you? Where your chart say you are now, where you think you are, where's 30 feet of water? It ain't over there by the Russell Beacon, it ain't over there by Northwest Lake. So you have to know that you in the middle here, up here by Marquis Shoal somewhere. And I was so shocked, because he went up there to anchor this big, with the big Montague back then, eh? And so that defense force was bought leaps by way of those two navigators. And of course, they would have had to train up the very first set of officers that went to Dartmouth. And these were great men. You're talking about Ken Turnquest out of Long Island, Peter Drudge. He went to, was it Sarkos and Arts? Peter Drudge was, and Ken Turnquest were the very first two that went to Dartmouth. And of course, when they came back, they had to come under the realms of Batch and Scotty. And then there was the great Don Weir. And I call him the great Don Weir because he was such a leader that even when I joined the force, I never worked with Don Weir. But because of the stories you hear and the way he carried himself, you would know that that man is a man that demands respect. And he has a slew of officers and ratings that work under him, that has utmost respect for him. So we had Donald Weir, we had people like Roger Roll and Godfrey Roll and Anthony Allens. Do you know Roger Roll coming out of St. Andrews High School? Godfrey Roll coming in with a college degree. Anthony Allens coming in from being a head boy at A.F. Hadley. Very high good grades. These were the caliber of persons that were attracted to defense force in the beginning to be the first source of DACMA trained officers. And of course, they were all joining, saying that I probably will be able to run this organization very soon because it's brand new and they need qualified people to run it. This isn't like the police force where you join as a constable and that's there. You work your way through the system without really being qualified to be an officer as far as academics is concerned. So, and the police force knew this, right? They all knew that defense force had a slew of young officers that were highly polished, well trained, and burgeoning leaders, not only of the defense force, but possibly of this country. So, closely following those guys was a gentleman called Jackson L. Ritchie. And he came directly out of Long Island. Based on what I understand, Jackson Ritchie came out of school with 6 A's in his O-levels. And he went to Dartmouth, he came back, and Jackson Ritchie, if things were to take the shape that things should take in that organization called the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, he should be the most outstanding person ever walked through the doors of the Royal Bahamas. And I say that because he was only there for 5 years. But the amount of arrests that one man made in that 5-year period, he wasn't captain when he first came back, so it took him a while. So I'm saying a 3-year period, eh? It took him about a year and a half before he became captain. And he made more arrests than all of the other defense force officers put together, and multiply that by 2. And I can tell you, and anybody who was on the force back then can tell you, every time that man come and patrol, you hear his name on the radio. HMBS Inagua, under the control of Lieutenant Jackson Ritchie, made another arrest. I mean, week in, week out. It was so bad that, and I ain't trying to big up nobody, I just talking facts, eh? I'm talking what I know. It was so bad that was my first commander. He was my first captain. And I remember one time we went to sea and we were chasing about 3 different vessels, and he grabbed one, then he go on chasing another one, and we was on the Keyside banks. And when we were finished, he looked at me and said, "Babe, where are we?" And I was like, "So you keep changing course, you wasn't telling me you keep changing speed, you're doing this, you're doing that." I try to find excuses. He said, "I don't care what's going on up here. You follow on your chart what we doing." And then he told me, say, "See the leather short keys right over there, put on a fix." And I was like, wow, boy, but you know I was on a ball after that. But Jackson Ritchie, I don't know how he did it, but he just had that knack for making arrests. Drug boats, fishing boats, poachers, you name it. He was bringing them in droves. Mother ships, etc., etc. But this is not a Jackson Ritchie story. This is a defense force story. And at some point, the defense force need to catch themselves, you know. They need to make up a board so that these recruits and these current officers can know who did what in that job when. And people like Jackson Ritchie should be the top name on that board. Batching on the floor, very close, if not second. Scotty Monroe. Right? Roger Roll, Donald Weir, Anthony Allens, these are the people who made a lot of arrests in that force. And I can almost assure you that they made far more arrests than the arrests being made today. And it's no fault of the force as it is now. It's no fault. Because back then, the seas were more riddled with poachers. The seas were more riddled with drug traffickers. We're talking about the early 80s, eh? The late 70s, early 80s. This is the era of the drug runs. This is the era of the Haitian migrants just coming in droves. This is the era of the Cuban fishermen and the Dominican fishermen and everybody that's taking charge of our banks. So it's no fault of the defense force today that this big bunch of opportunities to make arrests are no longer out there. But we got to give kudos to these brave young men who got it done. Who got it done. And there were many to follow, eh? talk about the James Wallaces and the Harvey Sweetings and the Boyd Williamses and the Davy Rolls. Who else we got? Plenty people. Herbert Bain. I can leave myself out. Tellis Bethel. Come on, man. There was a lot of officers that made the difference in those days when the Royal Bahamas Defence Force was being launched. These were people that made the sacrifices. These were the people that were extremely young, extremely talented, and they got the job done. So, when I speak of mark of a retired soldier, that exchange that took place between myself and Chief Colebrook is not the only exchange. People come across Ken. I came across Ken Quest. I didn't salute him. And I was so happy to see him. And Ken told me, because I told him, I said, boy, the things that I saw Jack Ritchie did, and I was telling him I wanted him to come on the show. And Ken told me that, oh, Jack came up, I was his captain, I trained him. And I was like, wow, I didn't even know that Ken Turnquest is the person that Jack Ritchie trained under. But of course, Ken would have trained under either Batchelor LaFleur or Scotty Munro. But this is how the trend goes, people. This is how the trend goes. And you could speak to almost any one of these officers that were there in the beginning phases, and a litany of officers that came in later on would tell you, I trained under this one, I trained under that one. I got a litany of guys who trained under me. I mean, some of them don't like to admit, well, one of them don't like to admit it, right, OD? But, you know, they were good officers, and we got it going. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Maritime Matters. I'm here all the time. I'm going already. Boy, my producer let me run on there. I forget. Time is going so fast, and we got so much things to cover. But anyway, we're going to move to our first break. And as we come out of our break, we will be moving to the Utopia of the Seas, the largest cruise ship, and what that's going to bring to us here in the Bahamas. Thank you very much.
At One-on-One Pharmacy, our friendly staff is ready to serve you. Visit us today for all your prescription and over-the-counter needs at our East Street South or Charles Saunders Highway locations. We're open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 9 to 4 on Sundays. In a rush? Send your refill scripts online at oneononepharmacy.com or ask about our convenient pickup service. One-on-One Pharmacy, providing personal health care with people at heart. At Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, we offer first-class maritime security services throughout the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean. As experts in maritime security, we specialize in production of ISPS assessments and plans, verification audits, certified familiarization training, and port security consultancy, just to name a few. Our services also include provision of a security force to maintain all required ISPS facility security compliance. For all your maritime security needs, visit us today in Nassau at our East Street South location or in Freeport in the Kipling building. Call us at 392-3515 or follow us on all social media platforms. Bahamas Maritime Connection, your leader in maritime security. Let's help you make the connection.
I left my home in Georgia, headed for the Frisco Bay. I've had nothing to live for. Look like nothing's gonna come my way. So I'm just gonna sit on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. Look like nothing's gonna change.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain. Tonight, we are going to get into some deep discussion. We just finished talking about how the hierarchy of the Defense Force from whence it came was so impacting and effective in such a small country like ours. So we move on to the first mega cruise ship built for short cruises delivered to the Royal Caribbean. So the Royal Caribbean International or the Royal Caribbean Cruise Line, RCCL or RCI, however we want to say it, they actually designed the ship to do short cruises. What they call short cruises. Short cruises is basically less than a week. But this cruise ship is going to be doing 3 night cruises and 4 night cruises every week. So you'll be doing 2 cruises a week. And because they're going to be in Fort Lauderdale, in Port Everglades, as we know it, that's where they're going to be home porting. That's where they're going to be taking on all the people, eh? They're going to leave there and come into the Bahamas for a 3-night cruise. They're going to spend 1 day at Coco Key, which is, they call it a perfect day at Coco Key. And then they spend the next day in Nassau, then they go back to Fort Lauderdale. And they do it all over again, and they do that. And why do they do this? You know, back in the day when I was serving as the deputy port controller, they had quite a few cruise ships that they came to Nassau twice a week. So they did those short cruises, 2, 3 nights and then 4 nights. And every week they continued and continued and continued. So we saw some ships, and that was RCCL actually. Some of their ships at the time, I'm trying to remember the name, but it's of the seas, that came twice. So we didn't get tired of seeing them because I was a pilot trainee, and you know, without those ships coming off, then the pilots ain't got much to do, and they be making all that money. So not only the pilots, the taxi drivers, and all the vendors in the port, and the agents, and everybody's getting their share from these cruise ships. I want you to know that these cruise ships generate massive revenues in Nassau, eh? For us Bahamian people. I don't care what people say. Oh, the cruise ship people don't spend the money. That's what you think. But just by them ships coming here, a lot of money is being generated. So the Utopia of the seas is unique, as she is the first of the largest class of cruise ships to be deployed on delivery into short weekend cruise market. So all of the other mega, and when we say mega cruise ship, we're talking about over 200,000 gross tons, eh? So we talking about the Oasis class. Oasis being the smallest one. The very first one is the smallest. Because every time they build a ship after that, with that same mold, the ship got bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's how this thing worked. So this is the 7th now, I think. And they're going to build another one after this. And that's going to continue getting bigger. But I think the icon of the seas, which came this side of the world already, it was supposed to go to China. But you know, that's during that time when COVID was rampant in China, because China got the last leg. They got the first opening and then they got the last leg of COVID. So they came to the Caribbean. And Utopia is, I think, the largest one, because she's not designed to do no short cruises. But I think she's the one that is just under 250,000. They tried to make her over 250,000 to say, now we got a ship that's 250,000 gross tons. That would have been the first one. But she falls short by about 100,000 gross or something like that. Not 100,000, 100 gross or something like that. She came to like 248.4 or something like that. Anyway, the very next one will be over 250,000, I can assure you. And they can see to that, right? But the Utopia that we're speaking about, which is in the same class, it's one of the largest, biggest ships in the world, cruise ships, one of the 7. She entered service just 5 weeks ago from Port Canaveral, Florida to the new Utopia of the Seas, 236,860 gross tons, is as much as 50% larger than the Freedom of the Seas class. So the Freedom and them would be somewhere in the range of 120,000 gross, and this one double that. That's what they said. So she have a passenger capacity of 5,600 people in the lower berths and 2,800 cabins. New ship will carry at least 20% more passengers. Eh? taking delivery of Utopia overseas is an incredibly important milestone as it marks yet another evolution of our game-changing ships and our mission to create the best vacation experience responsibly. That's Jason Liberty, who's the president and CEO of the RCI Group. They go on to talk about how the ship features a broad array of amenities ranging from 5 swimming pools, water slides, including one that is 43 feet longer than on any other ship, making it 259 feet, the longest dry slide at sea. So almost 260 feet long of slide, There's also a surf simulator and a zip line. They have a zip line actually on board the ship. We said we want a zip line to run from Prince George Wharf all the way down to Porter's Key, and then from Prince George Wharf on the next side all the way to Arawa Key. And we really want that. Yeah? And we want to see our port have that in place. Because if we get 15 to 30,000 people come to our port on a regular, all around the clock, annual basis, come on, man. We have to have some things in there for them to get excited about. Let's put the zip line. They got zip line on the ship now. I'm talking the big zip line they get on Coco Key. So passengers will have more than 20 places to eat. They got more than 20 restaurants on board the ship. They have live music, entertainment, casino, and the thing about these short cruises is what I was told back then when I was at the port is they like the idea of the short cruises because they make a lot of money off the casinos, the gambling. The cruise ship make a lot of money from that. So they say after the 3rd night, the people who gamble, either they went broke or they close to broke. So they want to bring in a fresh set of pockets for the next 3 nights. So if they got a 3-night and 4-night cruise going on, that means they always got people with fresh money coming on the ship, And we in Nassau gotta capitalize on them fresh pockets too. Because the ship will be coming to Nassau twice a week. You gotta ask for nothing better than that. So with the delivery of the Utopia, they said you have keys to ultimate weekend vacation that packs every week to make amazing memories, and a 3-night weekend or 4-night weekday getaway. So the 3 nights will be over the weekend, and they're trying to catch those people who don't want no time off from work. And then when you get some time off, you can come through the week. And you want to sneak away with your favorite person or go by yourself and get away from everybody, just come through the week and go on to Utopia, come to Coco Key in Nassau, and then you go back to the States, and then you don't clear your head and do what you have to do, everything straight. So they have a demand, which is the 6th one in the Oasis class. This number 6, this ain't number 7. Based on that strong response from travelers, the company is deploying a Law of the Seas, one of the first ships of the class. And I think a Law was the 2nd one after the Oasis, more than a decade ago, also on short cruises. So not only would they have the Utopia doing short cruises, they'll also have Royal Caribbean's, one of the older ship, the Allure of the Seas, coming to Nassau Harbor twice a week. Why is it that they're choosing the Bahamas to do their short cruises? I got the answer for you right after I listen to this caller. Oh. No caller, producer? We had a caller? Or the caller hang up. Caller, we apologize. I didn't see you on the line. We apologize. Please call back. But I was just getting into why would they have chosen Nassau Harbor or the Bahamas to do these short cruises? If you really think about it, where else could they go from Fort Lauderdale or Miami or Cape Canaveral, because they're the 3 largest home ports in the world, and do a quick trip and back to any other country other than the Bahamas? Well, maybe they could do it with Cuba, with Havana, But then you get to no other country to do a cruise and they can do a 3-night and a 4-night by home porting twice in Florida. So they almost have to use the Bahamas. I said have to use Nassau now. Because you know when we done develop our port at Morgan's Bluff, she can get some of this too. They may be able to do a 3 visit on a 4-day cruise. They could do Kokoki, Nassau, and Morgan's. We see how close Morgan's Bluff is. Yeah man, they get 3 ports in one shot. So let's hurry up develop that. So these cruise ships can start going down the road of catching Nassau and Morgan's Bluff as visits on their short tours. So the reason why they choose to do the Bahamas for their short tours is simply because we are so close to their home porting facilities that it makes it easy. It's almost impossible for them to pass the Bahamas and go to another country and do a 3-day cruise or even a 4-day cruise. So I'll go as far as saying they can't stop with us if they want to hide at half a day. And it is what it is. Boy, but we need to be appreciative and understand that we are so blessed to be in the location that we are, right on the doorstep of the 3 largest home ports in the world for cruise ships. Right on the doorstep. Blessings, blessings, blessings. So the Utopia of the Seas took more than 2 years to be built in France. She was built in France, she completed sea trials at the beginning of May, and is now set to depart for the United States. So she ain't reached yet, but she on the way. In the weeks leading to her debut on July 19th, that's about a month away, exactly 1 month away, eh? Utopia of the Seas will make her way to the US as the Royal Caribbean teams make the finishing touches to get the ship ready. She has a crew of 1,600 aboard and a full staff. Will have 2,290 crew members. So she have a little more than half, about 2/3 of her crew on board right now. She can take on some more just before she said, I think you know the ones that she will be taking on is like all the waiters and that type of thing, eh? While she is the 6th ship of the design and the 4th built in France. The ship is the first of the class to be LNG fueled. You know what I mean? I mean, they build the ship, but she ain't going on fuel oil. She going on liquefied natural gas. Why is that? Because liquefied natural gas is the way that most ships are resorting to, because they're trying to reach the net zero carbon emissions by 2050. And they want to start cutting down now on emitting carbon. So LNG burns about 2/3 of what the fossil fuel would burn, eh? So they're going to cut down by 1/3. So the success of the class led Royal Caribbean to recently place an order for a 7th Oasis class vessel, also to be built in France for delivery in 2028. So they got another one on the way. Utopia of the Seas follows the Icon of the Seas, which entered service in January of this year as the line's first LNG fueled cruise ship, and the largest cruise ship in the world. That was the Icon, eh? Royal Caribbean will introduce the 2nd ship of that class, the Star of the Seas. So the Star of the Seas will be the sister ship to the Icon. She'll also be very, very close, but they may try to get over that hurdle to 250,000 gross tons. In 2025, she'll be delivered and has a 3rd on order for made in Finland. Now they got a ship right after the Star of the Sea, another one of the sea being built in Finland, and I guess this one is going to be the one that will be over by far 250,000 gross tons. So that's the story of the Royal Caribbean Cruise Line as we know it today, the Utopia of the Seas. And now we want to get to our Houthis attacks in the Red Sea and in the Gulf of Aden. Did you hear the latest? Liz, my dear listener, is that the Houthis, they almost totally out of order. They now, they started out with those drones. They sent in drones, and then they start with the ballistic missiles. Those heavy pounders that really take its toll on some of those ships that come close enough to shore. And then they gotta come close if they get to the Suez Canal. Gotta come close to where the Houthis are, which is in Yemen. And so now they got these drone vessels. And let me tell you what they did with this bulk carrier. They had the back up on this boat. And when the crew first saw, it looked like a fishing vessel. The first saw this vessel, they had 2 people in it. Well, not people. They put 2 mannequins in the fishing boat so that they could think that's people coming to go fishing. And they guided it by remote means because it's only a drone, eh? And then the boat keep coming, and then when they realized it was too late, it drove straight up on the stern of that bulk carrier and kabloom! Ripped a big hole in the stern. The engine room became exposed and flooded, and they had to evacuate every single person from that ship. Mind you, that ship had on it 3 armed, because they came through the Suez Canal and they were going around to, I think, India. They had 3 armed military men because they figured, well, we gotta look out for those Somali pirates when we pass in Somalia and the Gulf of Aden. And those 3 were still on the ship when that drone ship, mind you, they probably would have been able to shoot it off before it reached and cause the explosion to happen before it actually engaged the ship. If they knew that they were not people on that vessel but mannequins. And so that's how tricky they are. And that's how tricky we all gotta be now, eh? That's how they get on. So let's see what they say about our Houthis. Because we have a surviving crew member. I think he was telling us his story of how this thing happened. Now listen to how serious. And the name of the bulk carrier was the tutor. Like you want a tutor to teach you how to know maths a little better. It run up in the stern of the tutor and caused a big blast that actually caused the ship to start taking on water and sink, eh? It ain't sink yet, but boy, it's sinking. And the engine flooded. So the story goes like this, and it ain't a long story. The surviving crew of the stricken bulker Tudor returned home to the Philippines on Monday, and they have given the first account of their ordeal during the bomb boat attack launched by Houthi forces off Yemen last week. Last Wednesday, the Greek-owned Tudor, so the Tudor is owned by Greeks, was underway in the Red Sea. They're not flagged by Greece, but they're owned by Greece. They have Greek owners. But Greek own most bulk carriers in the world. We know that. Well, we ought to know that. They were heading for India. Crew members spotted a small fishing boat approaching on the port quarter. What the port quarter means? Port quarter means the quarter is the back of the boat, and quarter means either the left hand side or the right hand side. So they say the port quarter, so that'll be the left hand side of the stern. That boat was approaching because it was coming from right up there on their port side, which would be Yemen if they come in heading south toward India. Crew members spotted a small fishing boat approaching on the port quarter, carrying what appeared to be 2 people on board. It did not look like a threat until it got closer. As it approached, crew members on the port bridge realized the threat and urged everyone on deck to get back in the wheelhouse. Why do they go to the wheelhouse? They go to the wheelhouse because they figure, hey, look here, this boat, this might be a pirate boat. We need to secure ourselves in the wheelhouse and lock up. That's part of the procedure when you're in piracy infested waters, eh? So the 2 people, quote unquote, on the fishing boat turned out to be dummies. and the vessel turned out to be a remotely controlled bomb boat. It struck the stern in way of the engine room and detonated, causing immediate flooding, disabling the ship. One engineering crew member went missing and has not been found. So one of the engineers to date more than likely died based on that impact, but they ain't find him yet, eh? And as you know, most of the crew were Filipinos. The dummy was fast. It maneuvered before chasing us. A drone attack also occurred at 1300 on the other side of our ship. So they had the remotely controlled bomb boat hit them, and shortly afterwards, about an hour later, they were hit by a drone on the other side of the ship. The crew sent a distress signal, but the survivors were stuck on board the ship for 10 hours while awaiting rescue. In the interim, they were attacked once again with a missile. What kind of missile are we talking about? Ballistic missile. So they get hit with all three weapons that the Houthis use. They get hit with the boat first, which put a big hole in the stern of their boat. Then they get hit with one of the air drones. Then they get hit with a ballistic missile. Boy, these Houthis really serious, you know. They took shelter deep within the hull and rigged up a portable generator to provide light, power, and communications while they hoped and prayed for evacuation. So I say this sounds something like when they had that attack on the HMBF Flamingo. Well, of course, that would have been worse than this. But the thing that in peacetime, these guys are, mind you, everybody know the Houthis doing these things anyway, eh? But they up the ante. The Houthis are now actually sending, well, they were always sending ballistic missiles, but they're sending boats that are nothing but bombs. And they're navigating that boat to you to cause the problem. So eventually, U.S. Navy helicopter aircrew arrived to retrieve them from the deck of the ship and fly them to safety. They were greeted with a warm welcome aboard the USS carrier Dwight D. Eisenhower. So the USS Eisenhower was in the area. They send a chopper because, you know, that's a big aircraft carrier. They get all kinds of planes. And these are the ones that are actually trying to spot the Houthis ashore and destroy their setup before they could set off a bomb. But they're not very successful because it's so easy to set stuff up and shoot it off before you could find it. It's almost impossible for them to stop that. And they try it, and they're getting some, but boy, they ain't getting all. Provided with food and medical evaluation, and then flown ashore for repatriation to the Philippines. So no one is injured. Majority of them seem to have experienced battle shock. So they may possibly be under post-traumatic stress. Doesn't that ring a bell? Battle shock. Mind you, these, you know, military people. These even, you know, defense force trained people. But they talking about battle shock. HMBS Flamingo fellas would have experienced the same battle shock, eh? And have that same post-traumatic stress. Although they had no treatment, although nobody tried to counsel them. So on behalf of my crew, this is the captain saying, we thank the Lord. To all the agencies of government who helped us, thank you very much. And our company and the U.S. Navy. Boy, people say what they want to say about the U.S. Navy or the U.S., but I can tell you, boy, they beat it in times of disaster. We can talk about it from the Flamingo incident. Thank God for them. In an unexamined footnote to Wednesday's events, footage of the casualty shows that at least 3 individuals on the bridge of the Tudor appeared to be armed with semi-automatic rifles. Those were the guys I told you about. On a typical voyage through the high-risk area requiring extra security, the crew is not provided with firearms for a variety of reasons related to employee safety and port state regulatory compliance. You can imagine giving the crew on board weapons and they got in all these different ports. How much damage could be done, eh? So instead, a small number of private maritime security contractors typically embark the ship or get on board the ship, shortly before entering the contested area and disembark the ship after leaving it. So before they get into that area of the Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea, where they know you got the Houthis on one side and the Somali pirates on the other side, before they get there, they take on these contractors, the PMSC, as the private maritime security contractors, right? And they come heavily armed because they are ex-military personnel. And they say these contractors are typically ex-military personnel, often from Sri Lanka or from Western nations. So Sri Lanka's nearby. Sri Lanka got an army and a navy and all the rest of that. So they train up their people and they provide them to ships that need escorts or armed escorts. Okay? So in the aftermath of the 2 days evacuation, no mention has been made of an embarked maritime security contractor team aboard. So they must be still on board. They ain't got no evidence to say they came off. All 21 surviving individuals retrieved from the ship have been described as crew members. All repatriated together to the Philippines. They ain't say much about the other guy, the one that was missing in the engine room. We ain't know what going on with him. And then they got the story talking about Red Sea diversions. They causing this congestion in Singapore. So because of what's going on in the Suez Canal, where most ships now have to go around the Cape of Good Hope all the way around Africa to get to the other side of the world, it's taking them about 2 weeks longer to get there. They're causing all kind of chaos in Singapore because ships are now rerouting. They get an opposite way sometimes to get there. And Singapore says shipping lines divert traffic away from the Red Sea to avoid the persistent menace of Houthi rebel attacks. New routes are reshaping the patterns of marine traffic and port calls around the world. Vessels normally assigned to other trades have been diverted to the core Asia-Europe service lane, which is now thousands of miles longer than before because of the need to circumnavigate Africa. So they got to go all the way around Africa. That's what we're saying. One unexpected outcome has been extra demand for bunkering. Bunkering means taking on fuel, and transshipment at the already busy port of Singapore. So you know, Singapore is something like Freeport Harbor, where they get the container port in Freeport. Ships bring containers, leave them there, they store them away, and other ships come to take them to keep the voyage going, take them further on. So they call it a transshipment port, and that's what Singapore is big with. They're big transshipment ports in Singapore. But they say they're now getting congested because these ships are backing up and some are going the opposite way and all kind of things going on because the Houthis got the Suez Canal on lock. Our ships fuel up for longer haul, so they got more ships coming to get fuel and all. Of course, they get bunker badges and all that, but that ain't enough. As demand for transshipment rose, Singapore's container volume in the first 5 months of the year climbed nearly 8% over the same period in 2023, according to Dewey, Singapore's container terminal utilization rate. So they have gone way up in there with their TEUs, with the containers, all the disruption. The disruption in Asia hub ports is helping to support higher container rates. So because of all this disruption and congestion, the rates for containers to move from one place of the world to the next side of the world is even higher now, And we here also experience a higher rate as we see the cost of almost everything going up. Oh, I tell you. So the Houthis continue to attack merchant ships, greater bulk hit, bulk offense of piracy, and it's a lot of that going on. It's just plenty. Now, we want to talk about the Russian warships, right? Should we take our last break before we talk about the Russian warships? Because I think that could be a little hotter than the caller topic that we go to. So, Mr. Producer, if you could take us to our last break, that would be nice, sir.
At One-on-One Pharmacy, our friendly staff is ready to serve you. Visit us today for all your prescription and over-the-counter needs at our East Street South or Charles Saunders Highway locations. We're open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 9 to 4 on Sundays. In a rush? Send your refill scripts online at oneononepharmacy.com or ask about our convenient pickup service. One-on-One Pharmacy, providing personal health care with people at heart. At Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, we offer first-class maritime security services throughout the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean. As experts in maritime security, we specialize in production of ISPS assessments and plans, verification audits, certified familiarization training, and port security consultancy, just to name a few. Our services also include provision of a security force to maintain all required ISPS facility security compliance. For all your maritime security needs, visit us today in Nassau at our East Street South location or in Freeport in the Kipling Building. Call us at 392-3515 or follow us on all social media platforms. Bahamas Maritime Connection, your leader in maritime security. Let's help you make the connection.
We are back, ladies and gentlemen. You are tuned in to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain. We've been chalking up discussions on a number of topics. You know, we talk about the Defense Force, mark of a retired soldier, how we were so tight back in the day, how we had such a good start, and you know, we do pray that it continues to go in a positive direction, but of course we have some issues to address. We talk about the Utopia of the seas, as they're doing 2 short voyages, or they design for short voyages, and they should be doing 2 visits to the Bahamas every single week for I don't know how long, and then the second ship that is built by Royal Caribbean, not the Oasis, the other one, she'll be coming here as well on 2 weekly visits. So that'll be 4 weekly visits of those big huge ships, Oasis class, coming to the Bahamas every week. And of course, we got other ships coming along with them. RCCL will have some more, and of course, Carnival will have a litany of ships. We have what's the other one name? What's the other big land? We got Disney, of course. Disney got a lot of ships coming in and out of our ports, and we got one more. I can't remember. NCL, Norwegian Cruise Lines. And at this point, you know, I got a call this weekend, and that call was not a good one. That call informed me, a good friend of mine, informed me that, you know, one of the great maritime icons in our country had passed away. So those of you who would have been involved in anything around the harbor would know the name Michael Hall. And I can tell you that Mike Hall was an icon as far as shipping agents are concerned. He controlled just about all the tankers coming to Clifton Pier. He controlled the entire Carnival operation. He controlled a lot over the years in Nassau Harbor. And anybody that worked in Nassau Harbor in any capacity would have known my good friend, Mr. Michael Hall. And I say, Mike, we're going to miss you, my brother. May your soul continue to rest in peace. That's the great Michael Hall, and I had to pay tribute to him because I know what he represented. Now, let's go to our discussion on the Russian Navy not wreaking havoc, but causing great concern in our region. The Russian Navy carried out a small-scale missile drill off the U.S. East Coast on Tuesday, and that would have been last week, Tuesday, according to the Russian Ministry of Defense. The Russian nuclear-powered submarine Kazan, that's K-A-Z-A-N. I don't talk Russian, but I think I say it right, Kazan, or Kazan. And guided missile frigate Admiral Gorshkov. No, I call that one right. Oh yeah, I cussed that time. Admiral Gorshkov. That's a guided missile frigate. In other words, they have missiles that once it released, they could still guide it to where they want it to go. All right? And that ain't a destroyer. That's a frigate. It's a little smaller than a destroyer. But the frigate was working in conjunction with the nuclear-powered submarine. You know it's a nuclear-powered submarine? That means the boat is running off nuclear power. That ain't only mean that it have nuclear missiles, or nuclear torpedoes. It means that the boat is so heavy, something like the U.S. aircraft carriers, they are so heavy that they need nuclear power for them to move at a fast pace. And this is a submarine that goes underwater. Sometimes they stay underwater for up to 6 months, they tell me. So, those two were underway for Cuba. They already reached for scheduled port call. Now, it has been a long time since one of those Russian war ships or submarines called a Cuba. I mean, there was an area now, because they could be around here and we don't even see them. You don't even know they're here. And they paused mid-voyage on Tuesday for an exercise in Atlantic. So according to the Kremlin now, they conducted a test of long-range anti-ship missiles. An anti-ship means they are submarines and they got a surface ship about 200-300 miles away, and they send a torpedo from the bottom of the sea up in the air, or they got torpedoes that stays in the water until they come underneath and hit the ship from underneath. They also got, well, I know they got some missiles that submarines can let out as well. So they conducted a test for those anti-ship missiles before resuming their voyage. The Gorshkov also tested its air defense system. So what the frigate was doing is they were testing their radars, because they're looking out for anti-air, in other words, aircraft. Because aircraft, once they sense a submarine, they got them what they call like Kara missiles and stuff, where they can let out, and when they hit the water, the propellers start to move, they become a torpedo, and they go and zoom into that submarine and track that submarine and detonate the submarine. So the submarine got to make sure they get a surface vessel to stop aircraft from doing that. Okay? They don't want aircraft get in the area. So that's why they move the way they move in pairs. Sometimes they move in flotillas, where you have an aircraft carrier, they surrounded by frigates and destroyers. I mean, it's a whole war, man. So I trained to fight war. But anyway, we got a call on the line. Let's see what our caller is saying for the night. Caller, you on Maritime Matters. Hello.
Hey, Captain B-A-I-N.
My good buddy, out of my rock, my Elutrian friend from Savannah Sound. How are you, sir?
Man, listen. America need our submarines in the water before England over here.
Well, they always, the U.S. got submarines worldwide and Russia got submarines worldwide, because submarines are stealth operations. They operate so nobody know they're there.
Well, Russia don't want to try nothing in these parts.
Yeah, they be in these parts, my brother. They be in these parts all the time. I mean, they don't announce it.
They don't want to try nothing over here.
They ain't want to try nothing nowhere, because the U.S. submarines.
What they're trying to do is make themselves relevant, because right now Ukraine is giving them the fits because of NATO, and they ain't got their full power. China would like to see Russia cleared out so they can be the big power over there. So ain't nothing waiting for Russia.
Well, China is actually in support of Russia. China. Yeah, they are. China, India. They all.
They want Russia oil for nothing.
No, they don't want Russia oil. I'm just saying to you that you got to remember that some of these countries don't like NATO now, because NATO involves the U.S. and the U.S. gives strength to the entire NATO.
Not only the United States.
The reason why this war is going on in Ukraine right now is because if Ukraine had joined NATO, the U.S. would have been able to bring all their weaponry in Ukraine, which is right on the border of Russia, and Russia trying to keep that buffer. That's what this is all about.
What do you think Ukraine is?
Do you remember the Cold War when they had the Cuban Missile Crisis? You know what that was all about? Let me tell you what that was all about.
Yeah.
That was where Russians got in bed with Cuba, and they're still in bed with Cuba, right? Because Cuba was rejected by the U.S. and they turned to Russia to assist them with food and money, and they were big. They took their missiles to Cuba and they set up shop.
Yeah.
And then the U.S. realized that those missiles were capable of reaching the U.S. coast, and they could have had nuclear warheads. The U.S. started to engage Russia and told them, we need you to move these weapons from Cuba. We see them, we know they're there. And you know what Russia told them? You all have some weapons just like them in Turkey. Point toward us. Yeah.
Guess what, Bill?
Hey, listen.
Do you realize that America has a base on Cuba?
Yeah, Guantanamo Bay. Yeah, man, I know. But that base can't stop nuclear head weapons from reaching the U.S. if they set them up on Cuba outside of Guantanamo Bay.
Oh.
All I am saying to you is the U.S. realized there was a situation where they were exposed and they couldn't do anything about it. And so they made an arrangement. And do you know that they agreed with Russia that they will take their missiles out of Turkey if Russia would move them out? And that's how they got to move them. That was a deal between Nixon and I forget the president, Russian name at the time. That caused both of them to move their missiles.
Yeah.
That's what the Cuban War crisis is all about. So now that you have you have American aircraft carriers and an American nuclear submarines out in the area of Russia.
Mm-hmm. In the Pacific.
Yeah, well, in the European area, they're all over the world, right? But it's particularly, China is about, at some stage, China's gonna take over. What the country named it to Southeast China? Taiwan. They're gonna take over Taiwan. So what the Americans don't want, and not only the Americans, the rest of the world, and it's very similar to what's going on in Ukraine. What they don't want is that when they do take over Taiwan, because ain't nobody can stop them, they don't try to go and take over Philippines and a couple of those other countries at the same time. Because, America have a very strong presence in the Philippines.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Ukraine. They're saying, well, okay, if the Russians take over Ukraine, you don't want to come no further, right? Into any of our NATO countries. So they're just trying to keep them, little innocent there and make sure they don't overstep their boundaries.
Listen, between you and me, I don't think Russia want what they even after. They may not even try it. They only try it that the Soviet Union will never be no more.
What do you think Russia wants out of Ukraine?
The testing labs and they got that.
No, they only want a buffer zone. They only want to make sure that NATO cannot get too close to them. Because you got to remember, north of Ukraine is Belarus. And Belarus
in Ukraine.
Pardon?
They got testing labs in Ukraine. They got all kinds of things in Ukraine.
Yeah, but they don't have no labs that Russia ain't already have. Russia ain't concerned with that because most countries in the world got labs, right? Even Iran and India, all of them got labs. Yeah. What Russia don't want is they don't want all of those artillery from the U.S., Britain, and everybody else who is part of EU bringing that stuff right up against their border. And if they take over Ukraine, then they do that.
Because the people, they got an 800-mile border, and Sweden, or whatever the new country is already part of NATO. They got an 800-mile border right there in the Baltic Sea.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying to you. Russia trying to keep its buffer. They're trying to keep its buffer, and I don't think they're going to stand down from that. And they're prepared to go to nuclear weapons to defend their position.
Hey, so Bill, listen, man. Keep it up, man. You got a good show going on. I didn't let Captain D-R-A-I-N yet.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with him, man.
I know they got him hostage down in Guantanamo Bay.
No, they ain't going to Moses, man. He's a good man. He go down there now. They can clock glass and drink beers. They ain't going to Mustard. You all right? Yeah, thank you so much for calling, man. I guess there's someone on the next line calling right now. Maritime Matters, hello.
Hi, Captain Ben. How you doing, sir?
I am in top shape, my friend, and getting better all the time. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing really good. I was just so happy when President Biden decided to let Putin know he can't see anybody in his area. And I'm putting a stump that hanging out in Cuba and believing you could create some sort of a threat.
No, they already discussed that these ships are coming down and they will not have any nuclear heads or anything. And I don't think they would even attempt to bring a ship like that in this area with a nuclear head, because the U.S. wouldn't have it, eh?
Well, what I liked about what President Biden did was he sent a submarine and had it arrive at Guantanamo Bay the very next day.
Yeah, they have been tracking these guys from the time they reached the Atlantic Ocean, you know. I don't want you to think the U.S. and Britain and all of them wasn't aware of where these vessels were at all times.
Okay. And then what I liked in addition was that Canada sent another one of their large military vessels.
Yes.
Out in support as well. So just to let people know, they get no ideas that one could come to the Caribbean.
No, I think Putin trying to send a message. You know the message is Putin trying to send? Putin trying to say, okay, y'all could go all over the world and be all over the place with your nuclear ships and stuff like that. We could do the same thing.
I got that, but let me ask you this. What do you think of him, Putin sending this message to Ukraine, making reference to a ceasefire? What do you think of that?
No, I don't think they invited Putin to the meeting when they saw Putin he is saying to them, look, you have to do it by my demands. See, Putin already realizes that the United Nations or NATO, the European Union,
right,
they are not going to barge their way into Ukraine since this war started. That will be a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
Because the whole world knows that Putin is the second most powerful nation in the world when it comes to nuclear weapons.
Right.
There's no other nation with only the US, and then it's Putin, and then it's Britain in them, right?
Right.
But Putin can wreak havoc worldwide if he is at the tail end of a situation. So they gotta move cautiously where Ukraine is concerned. But now if he try to step beyond Ukraine, he's gonna be in problems because all those other countries are part of the NATO.
So what I like about the process is he's flexing his muscles. I mean, and the challenge for him, and that's why I asked you, is your thought about his proposed ceasefire with Ukraine, because when you look at the size of Russia and the size of Ukraine, and the fact that when he went into Ukraine, or when Russia went into Ukraine in February of 2022, I am certain Putin did not expect to be still fighting with Ukraine until now.
Oh, my brother, let me tell you something. When they had the Iran-Iraq war back in the 70s, do you know that war went on for 7 years?
Yeah, I remember the late of the war.
Putin knows, and if you read through the red tape stuff right now, you realize that Ukraine is running out of manpower.
But of course, I'm aware of that.
Scrapping to find men to put on the ground. So Russia know that they could wait it out and march right into Ukraine because they ain't got no more manpower. Because I can guarantee that no other country is going to put any of their men on the ground in Ukraine.
Well, what I found very interesting was when I read the other day that despite his reluctancy previously, President Biden has now sent military warfare to Ukraine, which would enable them to attack military and other targets inside of Russia, which was what President Biden was reluctant to do previously.
Well, the reason why I think he was reluctant, and I can assure you that they got to still be very careful with that, because
but of course.
Russia has the kind of air force that they can come and beat Ukraine to powder before they could move and everybody would be dead. Just like how you remember when the US went into Iraq?
All right.
Russia can do the same thing with Ukraine.
Okay.
They have that power enough to do that. Because the training that their pilots would have compared to Ukraine, the US could give them all artillery and all the airplane and all everything, but if they ain't got the manpower to do that, they ain't gonna learn how to fly a military aircraft in 1 year.
Okay.
So Russia has that advantage at all times that anytime they're ready, Russia don't want to destroy Ukraine. Because
but I came to that conclusion.
They know that at the end of the day, they're gonna have somebody running Ukraine who's listening to them.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't want the whole place to be mashed up. So they're treating them like a little brother that needs spanking. That's all they're doing.
Well, I'm certain people didn't expect this spanking to be going on for 2 years.
Man, Russia got plenty patience, man. You gotta remember, they got the upper hand. They got the upper hand. They got the upper hand with everything. They got manpower.
If you would remember, or I'm certain you should have knowledge of it, when the war first started with Russia and Ukraine, Putin did not inform the Russian people that it was actually a war with Ukraine. Go on.
You think President George Bush did inform the Americans before he started the attack?
Well, they normally do. I mean,
they found out the day when the attack didn't start happening. Even the senior George Bush, when he bombarded Iraq and didn't finish back in 1990, I think it was. I found it on the news because I was in California. I was so shocked when I saw it on the news that they actually sent bombs already in Iraq. But he didn't continue, and that's why the second President Bush decided that he come to finish some stuff that was started that didn't finish. And
I'm in agreement with the fact that it was unfinished business that was started with his father, so the younger son, he came behind to finish it up.
So
when I look at, I understand Putin's position. I understand his position, and I really don't fault him for not wanting NATO to be in Ukraine. I don't fault him for that.
You can imagine,
as a military country, the last thing you want is your enemy to be right on your doorstep.
Imagine for a second, right, that the Chinese, who are quite heavily engaged with us in the Bahamas, or we engage with them, decide that they want to buy 8,000 acres of land in Cat Island because they want to put up a missile base. Do you think the U.S. will allow it to happen?
Hell no.
That's the way these things work. It's a tough situation.
And so that's why I'm saying I understand Putin's position, but see, the challenge with him and the thing about him that I don't like is his attitude, as I see it, is that force is the only position he can take.
Well, that's what we see from the news that we get, you know. If you
study Putin's life, Putin was always a biggity fellow, always.
Yeah, well, you got some fellas bigger than Putin on leadership.
Yeah, you are bigger with the world's second military power. That's a different position.
Yeah, but when you get Mr. Trump in charge, ain't nobody more bigger than him, eh?
Don't talk about Trump is my boy.
These fellas can afford to be biggity, man.
A lot of people don't like Trump. A lot of people, but I say to them, look at the American people. Whom do they want? Between Biden? Okay, but look, don't even let's go there. Let's go back to all of the runners who were seeking to be the Republican Party's presidential candidate.
They chose Trump over all them, eh?
Yeah! Now that tells you something.
So that should tell you something about the people who voted for him, eh?
Precisely.
The majority of them are like him.
You all claim to hate Trump. Look at Florida's governor.
Yeah.
DeSantis. And all of those other people, and even the lady there who at the last minute cowered out. All of those people were trying to beat out Trump.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, Trump won hands down.
You're right. Absolutely.
And so that tells you that despite the fact that you might dislike him because you live in the Bahamas or wherever else you live, the people who matter like a guy
Love
for one reason or the other.
Indeed.
And so what I particularly like about Trump is the fact that Trump is a financially strong man.
Well, I ain't sure he's the best. No, I ain't sure he's the best person in politics to represent that angle of it. Mind you,
I can agree with you with that.
But if you compare him with Biden, I mean, you're basically saying, yeah, well, he's the man they will want from that perspective.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're the only two. They're the only two you could compare now, eh?
But I'm just saying, when you look at even like when Trump first began to indicate that he was going to run for president years ago,
yeah,
I always felt that Trump would have done well because of his financial strength.
Well, when he came up that first time, I was sorry for him.
I do, and I didn't think he would ever become president.
I wouldn't think the second time around he would have just jumped straight to the top, you know.
But it was amazing. And then what I liked was the position he took with China when they had those trade wars with him and China.
Yeah.
What that silly President Barack Obama did.
Yeah.
Sending all of Americans jobs.
I can't call my
No. I can't call the fool until I die.
My mommy will raise from the grave and beat me side my head. She ain't nobody like Barack Obama better than my mom.
Okay, I am waiting for her to call to get back at you for being one of your subordinates who wouldn't admit that you trained him. I was still waiting for her to call.
All right. Well, we lost that call. We're fresh out of time. Ladies and gentlemen, I gotta apologize. Caller, I apologize to you. I don't know what went wrong. I didn't touch nothing. But we are fresh out of time. I don't know if that's my signal to say you done overdo your time. But in any case, please feel free to call back at any time. Thank you very much for the call. Ladies and gentlemen, our show is fresh out of time. As always, we didn't get to one or two of our topics, but we did cover quite a lot. I trust that you enjoyed the show. And let me just tell my good Auntie May, good night one more time, Auntie May. And my sponsors, Bahamas Maritime Connection, 101 Pharmacy, and the next one in Freeport, what that one name? Island Care Pharmacy. They are sponsors for the night show. My good producer, Mr. Craig, General Gibson, is on the controls. Again tonight, kept me alive. So ladies and gentlemen, I thank you, the listener, for being a part of listening to our show and keeping us together. Thank you so much. And with that, as always, I say Maritime Matters. Out.
Watching the ships roll in, then I watch them roll away again. Yeah. I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Just sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. I left my